Many years ago, in the beautiful village of Nise in Anambra State, there lived a renowned family called the Okparaji family. Their matron, who was fondly called Odubeze by everyone, had two sons named Azike, who was the first son, in Igbo what we call Diokpara, and Chike, who was her second son. Their father was dead, and although he was very wealthy and left a vast estate behind, he left a will behind that stated that his both sons were to receive their share of inheritance only after they got married. But he didn't stop there. He also went further to state that both of his sons had to marry from Anambra State, and that if any of them were to ever marry outside Anambra State, then his wife and the other brother had to approve of the wife, and also they must have been married for 2 years, and after the 2 years elapses, his wife, their mother, and the other brother had to give approval for the one who married outside Anambra State to have access to his inheritance. Azike and Chike were not just brothers, they were friends. They were each other's best friend and had both told themselves that they could get married to anyone, whether from Anambra State or not, and that they would give their approval after 2 years as stated in the will as a prerequisite for accessing inheritance. A few months later, Azike got married to a beautiful lady called Chinyere. Chinyere was also from Anambra State. As a matter of fact, she was the only daughter of a very wealthy man in Anambra State, so their wedding was a lavish one. But Chinyere was a spoilt brat. She was rude and very haughty. She spoke to maids anyhow and insulted them at the slightest provocation. None of her housemates liked her, but she did not care. As a matter of fact, she did not give a hoot of what they thought about her. Although Azike knew that his wife was rude, proud, and mean, he did not care either. He loved her just the way she was. He loved everything about her, from her looks to how she spoke to every single damn thing. So a few months after Azike got married, because he fulfilled his father's wishes by getting married to someone from Anambra State, he got access to his inheritance immediately. And with the money he got from his inheritance, he was able to pump a lot of money into his business. He was already into the oil and gas business before his inheritance. But with the added money from his inheritance, his business even became much more bigger, and Azike became even wealthier. Life was going very great for him. Azike and his wife Chinyere were having the time of their lives. A few years later, Chike, the second son, met and fell in love with a beautiful lady called Chiamaka. Chiamaka was sweet, kind, and good-natured. Although Chiamaka was not from a wealthy home like Chinyere, Azike's wife, she was very hardworking. As a matter of fact, she had a beauty salon that she ran and that brought her a good sum of money. But Chiamaka was not from Anambra State. She was from Imo State. Chike did not mind because, first of all, he loved her dearly and believed that love should conquer all barriers. Then secondly, he and his brother Azike were not just brothers but best friends. So he strongly believed that his brother would not oppose him when he had fulfilled the condition of staying married for 2 years and when it was time to access his inheritance. And truly, Azike was very happy for his kid brother Chike when Chike informed him that he had met the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. His brother Azike had been so happy for him and hugged him tightly, while reassuring him saying My guy, it does not matter where she's from. As far as you love her, that's all that matters. Don't worry, when it is time to access your inheritance after staying married for 2 years, you can count on me for support. I will definitely give my approval. And I'm sure that mommy too will support you, Azike said as he hugged his brother tightly. So with this reassurance, Chike went forward with his wedding preparations. A few weeks later, he got married to the love of his life, Chiamaka, and they were both very happy. However, a few months after their wedding, it was already Christmas season, and everyone had to travel back home to the village for Christmas. For the Igbos, not to talk of the Anambras, every December, one must go back to their village no matter the state of the economy and regardless of how far away the person lives. If the person likes, let the person be living in Australia or Kafanchan. Once it was Christmas season, all road leads to the village. So Azike and his wife Chinyere and Chike and his new wife Chiamaka all arrived at the village. The first few days were fun, the gisting, laughing and hanging out. But the more time they spent together, the more Chiamaka got very disgusted with Chinyere's behavior. She saw the way Chinyere backed orders at people and housemates and how rude and demeaning she was to them. She saw that Chinyere did not even bother to help out around the house. Instead, she would wake up in the morning and all she would do was to sit at the balcony sipping on juice and painting her nails. She would also spend hours and hours on the phone every single day, making calls and laughing hysterically. And to make matters even worse, Chinyere only accorded Chike, her husband's younger brother, some respect just because he was her husband's brother. But she felt nothing but contempt and disdain for his wife Chiamaka. Chinyere felt that Chiamaka did not belong to their socio-economic class and had no business bearing the same surname as her. She also disliked her because she was not from Anambra State like them, but was from Imo State. Chinyere simply saw Chiamaka as a leech, a poor girl from the gutters who is trying to get rich by getting married into a wealthy family. So Chinyere simply ignored Chiamaka and did as if she did not exist. Chiamaka, on the other hand, did not know what to do. She was still a very new wife. She had not been married for up to 3 months. So she felt that it was too early to raise any dust and cause any troubles in her husband's house. So Chiamaka decided that she was going to do her best to simply avoid Chinyere throughout the festive season. After all, they were not going to spend more than 3 weeks in the village. So Chiamaka began to take charge as though she was the first son's wife, saying that Chinyere did not care about what happened in the house. So Chiamaka would delegate tasks to everyone to do and would do it with so much respect and kindness, despite the fact that she was talking to maids who got paid. Chiamaka was still very polite about it. She made sure that different delicacies were flowing out of the kitchen. She treated all their guests with respect. The ones who were very wealthy and the ones who had simply come to visit just so they could eat a good meal, or to see if anyone would be generous enough to give them money or promise to take care of any of their children's school fees or a pressing family matter. Chiamaka was very kind. She gave every poor person that came to visit some rice, money and gifts, and she was very glad doing this. Chinyere, on the other hand, could not care less about the peasants who came to visit their home, but she made sure to greet and familiarize herself with the wealthy ones, those who came in and dressed very well, and those who looked like they were in her socio-economic class. And things continued like this for the next few days. And in no time, the housemates had started gossiping amongst themselves. They talked about how rude and wicked and irresponsible Chinyere, Azike's wife, who was supposed to be the first son's wife and even more responsible, was. And they praised Chiamaka for how homely, nice and generous she was to everyone, and how she treated everyone with respect. And soon enough, it was not just the maids in the house and others who lived within the house that were talking. The other villagers had also started talking. They sang Chiamaka's praises and said only good things about her. Whereas the reverse was the case for Chinyere. No one had anything good to say about her. Azike had started hearing all these rumors, and for the first time he began to pay extra attention to his wife Chinyere. And then he saw that all that they were saying was actually true. He was very disturbed because he knew that as a first son, his wife had a lot of responsibilities as the wife to the first son, and he did not like the fact that many of the villagers had nothing good to say about her. So he decided that he was going to call her and speak to her. So one day, Azike called his wife Chinyere and said, "Babe, I think you need to be nice to everyone, whether they are rich or poor. And also, you know that this is my village, and now your village, and not just that, but I am also a first son, and so you need to throw your weight around here and take charge. You need to familiarize yourself with the villagers. Chiamaka is already doing all of this, and everyone seems to love her. Please, I don't want you to think that I'm comparing you with Chiamaka, but I am the first son and you're my wife, so a lot is expected of you. Please just think about all the things that I have said," Azike said, looking really concerned. Chinyere was very upset with her husband and then replied angrily and said, "I cannot believe this. I cannot believe that you are comparing me, a whole me, the only daughter of Chief Ekene Omego One, to that nobody, Chiamaka, the daughter of a nobody. Well, first things first, I will never suck up to peasants. You knew that this was how I was before you married me, and yet you went ahead to marry me, so I beg, please, 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 do not even try changing me," Chinyere said as she stormed off from her husband's presence angrily. All through that day, Chinyere was very upset. She hated Chiamaka even more. Her husband had never accused her of being rude and mean until now that Chiamaka came into the picture. She kept on thinking about a way to deal with Chiamaka. She could not let her get away with what she had done. So after several days of giving it a thought, she finally came up with a perfect revenge. Her brother-in-law Chike had not yet accessed his inheritance because he married someone who was not from Anambra State, and so had to wait for 2 years after the marriage and still needed her husband's approval and that of their mother before he could get access to his inheritance, as stated in the will. So Chinyere decided that she was going to make sure that her husband does not give that approval at the end of the 2 years. So Chinyere began sowing evil thoughts into her husband's mind. Each time her husband and brother-in-law had guests in the village, and after they were done and had gone, Chiamaka would go to her husband and then casually say, "See how Chike was just parading himself today before your elders and kinsmen, and even addressing them as though he's the first son." One of the elders even wrongly gave him kola nut before you. Hmm. Before long now, they'll start assuming that he's the first son. Okay, oh, Chinyere would say, and then leave, knowing that she had already planted a seed in her husband's mind. And this was how she continued planting seeds here and there. And soon enough, Azike started thinking about all that his wife had said and started seeing reason with her. He even started getting threatened by his brother, especially after one day when the eldest man in their clan came to their home in the village and did not meet with him, Azike, who was the first son, but instead sat several hours with his younger brother Chike, discussing and drinking. After that incident, Azike was so disturbed. He called his wife looking very worried and said, "My love, it seems that what you said is true. I have been paying more attention to my younger brother recently, and I think he wants to take my position as the first son. I am worried. I don't know what to do." Azike said, looking worried. You see, thank God that you have finally seen the light. You have seen what I've been trying to tell you all this while. Anyway, my love, you have nothing to be worried about. That is why you have me. I have your back at all times, and I know just the right thing to do to clip your brother's wings. Do not give your approval for his inheritance. That way, he will remember who the boss and who the first son of this family is. Chiamaka replied mischievously. So Azike bought into all that his wife had said and decided to do what his wife had advised him. He hated his brother Chike with a passion now. So a few days later, the Christmas season was over and everyone had gone back to their respective homes. Azike and Chinyere had traveled back to their home in Lagos, while Chike and Chiamaka had also gone back to their home as well. A few months later, it was already 2 years, and it was time for Chike to access his inheritance. He woke up that day feeling very excited because he knew what his inheritance would do to his already thriving business. He had received a call from his father's lawyer telling him that his mother had called to give her approval and that he was to come to his office later that day, as his brother Azike would be there as well and they could do a proper handover. So a few hours later, Chike was seated with his brother Azike at the lawyer's office, but was very shocked when his brother refused giving his approval. What's the meaning of all this nonsense, Azike? Are you pulling my legs, or is this a prank? Are you saying that you will not approve that I receive my inheritance, but you promised me that you will never stand in my way? Are we not meant to be brothers? Not just brothers, but you are my best friend, for crying out loud. So why would you do this to me? Chike said, looking shocked, afraid, and disappointed. Well, it is my right to give or not give approval, and I refuse to give my approval, and that is simple and final, Azike replied as he stormed out of the lawyer's office. When Azike got back home, he excitedly narrated all that had happened at the lawyer's office to his wife Chinyere. Chinyere was so pleased and then said, "That serves him right. You see, him and his wife, now they will know who is the first son in the Okparaji's family, and now they will be humble." Chinyere said, gloating like a peacock. Chike, on the other hand, went back home devastated. He was so confused. He told his wife all that had happened, and she was as shocked as he was. They couldn't figure out the reason for the sudden change in Azike. Although Chiamaka suspected that Chinyere had something to do with this, but she didn't say a word of it to her husband. Over the next few months, all Chike's effort to reach Azike so he could change his mind on the approval had failed. The relationship between Chike and Azike had become strained, and when they went to the village for Christmas, Christmas was no longer all fun and merry. There was strife in the family and between blood brothers, who were not just once blood brothers, but were best friends. The brothers and their wives were no longer in speaking terms at all. One day, while they were in the village during Christmas season, Chinyere was busy making up and painting her face when suddenly she slumped and fell to the ground. The sound of her fall had attracted her husband and brother-in-law, who were shocked to see her on the floor. So they quickly rushed her to the village hospital because they were in the village and at least 3 hours away from a major city where they could get access to a very good medical care. They had no choice than to take her to the village hospital. Upon getting to the hospital in the village, they were able to stabilize Chinyere, but informed her husband Azike that they needed to do a blood transfusion immediately, at least in the next 20 minutes. If not, Chinyere was going to die. And to make matters worse, the doctors informed them that it was difficult to get her type of blood because she had a rare blood type, and there were very few persons that had that exact blood type. As soon as Azike heard all that the doctor had said, he broke down and began to weep. Money was not the problem. He had enough money to buy a whole blood bank. But now money could not even save his wife's life, because the major problem was getting her rare blood type, especially in a place like the village. Azike wept and wept. His wife was slipping away. Chiamaka stood there observing all that was happening. She knew that she had the same rare blood type and could donate blood to Chinyere. But then she remembered how Chinyere had not been such a nice person to her or to anyone around them, and what her and her husband Azike had done to her and her own husband Chike by withholding their approval for him to have his inheritance. She didn't think that Chinyere was worth saving, so Chiamaka stood there, struggling within herself whether or not to donate blood to Chinyere. But after giving it some thought, she decided to be good and donate blood to Chinyere, not because Chinyere was deserving, but because she told herself that she would not stop being good because of another person's evil nature. So Chiamaka told the doctor that she was a match and could donate blood to save Chinyere's life. And in a matter of minutes, the blood transfusion was done. A few hours later, Chinyere was better, although she was still at the hospital. She and Azike were very grateful to Chiamaka for donating her blood and saving her life. A few days later, she was discharged and they all came back home to the village. Chinyere and her husband Azike felt remorse for how they treated Chike and his wife by withholding Chike's inheritance from him, and they were impressed that Chiamaka, despite all that they had done to them, still donated her blood. So they called them and apologized to them, and Chike and Chiamaka forgave Azike and Chinyere, and they once again became a big, loving, happy family. Chinyere and Chiamaka became very close. In short, they were not just sister-in-laws, but became friends and sisters. And Azike and Chike also repaired their relationship, and they once again were close as before. And Azike gave his approval, and Chike was finally able to access his inheritance. Hi besties! It's your favorite storyteller, Omalicha again. Thank you so much for watching my story to the end. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you think? If you were Chiamaka, would you have donated your blood to Chinyere, that semi-rich? Also, Why is it that when some men get married, their wives will just come into the family and begin to cause division among brothers? And why does this always happen? Please share your thoughts with me in the comment section. And please support your homegirl Omalicha by subscribing to my channel, liking my videos, and sharing with your loved ones. So now, till I come your way again with more interesting stories, bye!